Hi, I am Nicky Clements, and I have another plastic shelf modification for you. Previously, I upgraded one of these by making it taller by replacing the original post with some PVC. Today, I want to add an additional shelf, and I have a few ideas about how I could go about doing it. Now, I think the easiest and most unnoticeable way to do this would just be to buy a second set of these shelves and basically Frankenstein them together. You could make a unit with 8 shelves, then just cut the posts to whatever length you like, or just add one, make one unit of 5, one unit of 3, whatever you like. However, while these are like cheap, they're not exactly cheap. I think this unit's probably around $25, $30, so they're easy and fast, but they're not exactly cheap. So I think a DIY method is probably the way I want to go. So basically just cutting a board and just affixing it to these posts. Now, I went ahead and I made a cardboard template so that I could cut a shelf out of, a piece of plywood or even just some shelving board, but I actually had another idea. I am going to use some wire shelving, and for my purposes, I think this is going to work great. It's going to be super easy and fast to install and very inexpensive, seeing as I already had this. Now, if you didn't already have some, I don't necessarily know if I would choose this because this is pretty expensive. This 4-foot piece is about 10 bucks. But this sheet of melamine is also 17, so it's a tough call as to what material would be the cheapest, so I say whatever you have already would definitely be the best option. And there's several ways to make pretty much any flat piece you put in there work. To make use of this, all I'm going to need are a couple boards that I cooked up earlier. So I just need to attach these rails wherever I want my shelf and then drop in the shelf, and that's it. Now again, if I wanted to go the route of just cutting a board as my shelf, I could do the exact same thing, or even just forego these rails and just use a screw to act as a shelf pin, making this super easy. And you wouldn't even have to do this intricate cut. You could just have this be a straight cut. So just cut a board the length that fits, fire in 4 screws, and you're done. Or if you did want to use some very thin material to try and save on cost, like some hardboard or paneling, you could use these runners, but instead of putting them on the sides, put them on the front and back, and that would give that thin material plenty of support, just allowing you to use really any flat material you have to make this shelf. But as I said, I'm going to use this wire shelving. Now, I probably could just screw in 4 screws and support it on that, and it would probably work fine, but as I already made these, I'm just going to go ahead and get these screwed on. Now, I want this shelf to be able to accommodate one of these bins, so I'm just going to set it right here, add a couple of extra lids to give myself some clearance, and then just set my runner right on top. And that would be easy enough to just fire in a screw, but I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill it anyway. And the same thing on the other side, bin as my guide. Perfect. So there we go, super easy. And then of course, an advantage of using this cross brace versus just screws as shelf pins is that adds a ton of rigidity to this unit. Now the only thing left to do is cut our shelf to size. Now these shelves are very easy to cut, and if you're buying them new from like a home center, they should be able to cut them for you at whatever length you like, but otherwise you can cut them with a hacksaw, or these Little Tikes Baby's First bolt cutters from Harbor Freight will definitely get the job done. Now if you're at all concerned with the look or the sharpness of these cut ends, they sell packs of tips that you can buy. And those just push right on over. And they come in the different sizes that you normally find the wires on these shelves to be. A small one there, and a medium one there. And with any luck, we should be able to just drop this right on in. And there we go. Now, you might notice that this wire shelf isn't as long as the original shelf. Now, they do make longer ones, but as, again, I already had this, and as I plan to use them with these bins, which they are the perfect size for, I'm not really concerned about this missing space. So if you need that additional shelf, you can, as I said, get the longer wire shelves or make it out of a board, making it any size you need. Now this is pretty much ready to go. It just worked out that 25 sections fits perfectly within these shelves, so there is actually a bit of a friction fit, but I'm going to secure it on using some zip ties and some holes that I prepared earlier. So there we go, a super easy, super effective way to add a shelf to an existing plastic shelf unit like this. Now I do hear one question being asked, is this super necessary for this? I mean, is just 2 stacked bins really that big a deal? Yes, it's a huge deal. Having to lift up a bin to get to the bottom one may not seem like much, especially if your brain isn't distracted by shiny things. But for the rest of us, simply being able to grab the bin that you need without having to worry about anything else makes it so much more likely that this will stay like this. For one, when this happens, now this bin is likely going to be on the bottom. If I do put this back, it's probably going back on the top. I'm probably not taking the time to put it on the bottom, which means now I don't quite remember if it's on the top or the bottom. So it's just another thing I have to remember and think and take a look about versus just knowing, okay, the bin I need is right there and not right there. Additionally, having them separated makes this so much easier. Just having to reach in if I need to drop something in versus trying to have to lift the lid and the bin on top of it. And I will agree, 2 bins, it's not that big a deal. But once you start getting into 3 or more, this becomes a huge issue, and having each bin on its own shelf is just an absolute game changer as far as being able to maintain this level of organization. And regardless, it's my shelf. What do you care? But yeah, this is precisely what I wanted, and I think it looks great for what it is. And it took the exact amount of effort that I was willing to do it. So if you have a shelf like this that you've been wanting to add more shelves to, I hope this gave you some idea on how to go about doing it. But my sincere thank you for watching. Once again, I am Nick D. Clements. If you're wondering, Nick is over Nicholas, and the D stands for Doom, like Temple of Doom. I just watched all of the Indiana Jones movies. I think Last Crusade is probably the best. Anyway, I'm off to make something else.